Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to be starting our personal grid project. So the way that this works is you have to have a printout of something. So for those of you that are in my in-person class, on Google Classroom, I did open up something today that says photo to print. That's where you turn this in. If you are in my online class, you can just email me a picture if you would like me to print it for you, or if you have a printer at home, or you can print your own at school. It's just normal size printer paper is what we're printing this on. For this assignment, the way I would like you to choose your image for this project, I want it to be something you're interested in. So think about your interests and what you like and what you enjoy. But I want it to challenge your current drawing ability. So I know everybody is at a different drawing level. So I want you to pick an image that you feel like is harder or like more difficult than what you think you can draw. So for everybody, that's going to look a little bit different because some of you are already more advanced. So no matter what level you're at, I want you to pick something that you feel will challenge your skill level, but you don't have to make it like so over your skill level that it seems impossible. Just make sure you're choosing something that feels challenging and that is more difficult than what you could draw. Okay? And the general idea here is we're going to put a grid on your printout, and then you're going to have a large paper which is 16 by 20 inches, and you're going to create a larger grid on that. And then using the grid as a map, you're going to draw it. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate how this works. The first thing I want to show you, this next part mainly applies to my online because the people in class, I am going to have yours pre-trimmed to the right size. But when you guys print on a normal printer, it's 8.5 by 11. We actually want this to be 8 by 10. So for those of you in my online class or in class, if you print yours on your own, before you start putting the grid on, you need to get this down to 8 by 10. So what I recommend you do is you just put the ruler on here and basically you get 10 inches wide. So if you can just line up like the left and right edge, the 10 is going to be your right edge. Just kind of line it up so that it's centered. And you just want to make a mark. So I might make a mark here at like the beginning line and then on the 10-inch line. And what I might do is I might do that a couple of times. So I'm going to do that really quick. I'm going to get it centered again. Okay, so this is where my 10-inch edge is going to be, and then this is the normal edge here. And then what you would do is you would draw a line to where you want to cut that off. Okay, so I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to go on this side. Now on mine, I'm using like a thick Sharpie, and that's mainly so you guys can see my lines clearly. But when you guys are doing this on your own, you should be using something a lot lighter. So either on the printout, it could be a thin pen or it could be a pencil. But on your main one, you for sure only want to use pencil. So I've marked that off. That wide, I want it 10 inches, and then the height needs to be 8 inches. So if I go like this on the height, I want to set it up. So the 8-inch line is going to be the top. So I'm going to move it so wherever I feel like the top of my image should be, I'm going to mark that 8-inch line. And I'm going to mark the bottom line here. Whoops, I got to get it so you can see it. So here's the bottom edge of the ruler and then the 8-inch line. And I'm going to put it on the same spot over here. So I'm going to do 8-inch line and then on the normal line. Okay, and then I'm going to draw that line across. So what you're essentially doing at first is you're kind of cutting the border off so that it's roughly 8 by 10 inches. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this. Now, if you really understand gridding, you wouldn't have to chop this off. But I think for most people, this will help. Okay, so what you're going to do, and once again, this is mainly just for anybody that is printing their own. You can see I've kind of gone around the outside and made a border here. And then you're just going to take a scissors and you're going to chop that off. So I'm just going to quickly chop this off. I'm going to go like lightning fast here because I know you guys don't want me to take all day for this demo. So we're just chopping those lines off. And then once you do that, you're going to have an 8 by 10. Now, like I said, if you have me print it for you at school, I will use my paper cutter and pre-chop this for you so that you have an 8 by 10. The only reason I show this is if you try gridding it and it's 8.5 by 11, you end up with extra grid squares and then it kind of confuses people. So to have less confusion, get this down to 8 by 10 first. So I'm just taking a scissors and we are trimming this down. Perfect. All right, so we've got that there. So once you have it, it's going to look like this. And this is now my 8 by 10 printout. So I want you to really pay attention on how to do the grid because it's something that surprisingly a lot of people struggle with the measuring and how to do this. So I want you to pay attention to it. And once again, I'm going to be doing this with like a thick Sharpie with thick lines, but you don't want it to be super thick on here. I'm just doing it so you can see it. So I'm going to measure from left to right. And on the small printout, you want your grid to be a 1-inch by 1-inch grid. So that means every 1 inch I'm going to make a dot. So I'm going to go ahead and make a dot on the 1, the 2, and I'm going to make my dots huge so you can see it. Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, there you go. You guys can kind of see these big dots there. So you don't need to make your dots that big, but I want you to clearly see here. I went across and every 1 inch I made a dot. Okay. Now, you could argue that, oh, I could line up on the ruler and just draw all the straight lines. But you want to have 2 sets of dots to make sure your lines are straight. Because one thing that can cause a problem is when students make crooked grids, then it's not going to line up properly. So you want your grids to be straight. So what I'm going to do is there's no specific amount. I'm just going to move somewhere higher up on the image, line up my ruler the exact same way, and every 1 inch I'm going to make a set of dots again. So I'm going to go like this, and every 1 inch make a set of dots. And what I've got is I've got another one pre-gridded normally so you can see what it should look like. But you don't want like really big thick dots like that. But you can see clearly every 1 inch I went and made a dot. So now what I do is I line up the dots together. So I'm going to play connect the dots here. And this is going to give me my vertical lines. So I'm going to do this. And once again, I'm making these thicker than you normally would just because I really want you to clearly see them. Some of you may end up in a case where if your printout is really, really dark, you may need to use something like a white color pencil. But for the most part, a regular pencil or like a thin black pen is what I would grid this with. Okay, so we'll do that. And then I want to explain kind of what is the purpose of this grid, right? So we'll get this going. I think some of you already understand this, but I'm explaining it as if you've never done it before, because I think there's some of you that maybe have never done this before. All right, so we've got that. So you can see I clearly made vertical lines, and once again, this came from spacing 1 inch apart. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my paper, and I'm going to do the same thing in the other direction. So now I'm still going to go left to right because I rotated my paper. I'm going to go here, and then every 1 inch I'm going to make a dot. I'm going to clearly mark it so I can tell where I'm at. And the way this is going to work is you're going to have 8 squares by 10 squares, because this is an 8 by 10 piece of paper with 1 inch squares. So we're going to do that, we're going to do that, we're going to do that, and that. Okay, so you can see now I've got every 1 inch going this way, and then I've got every 1 inch going that way.
Do you think my AirPods case is in here?
You can look for it, but I'm in the middle of recording a demo, so. Okay, so every 1 inch that way and every 1 inch this way. Okay, so now I'm going to go and connect these the same way. Like this, and like this. And here. And if you do this properly, all of your lines should be straight, and they should be exactly 1 inch by 1 inch. Now, one thing I will say is on your large paper, sometimes they don't cut perfectly because your large paper is 16 by 20, which is double the size. If your paper, what'll happen is on your large one, if it's not cut exact, you might end up with a row where like one row's a little bit skinnier, but that's not a big deal. But this essentially is what we're looking at. This is what your final grid should look like. So this is a 1 inch by 1 inch grid. So let me show you kind of what the final product looks like then. So we have this. This is my other one here that I have pre-done. Okay. So this is a different one I gridded. So your grid's going to look more like this. You can see the lines are a lot thinner, but you can still see the grid. Okay. Then what's going to happen is you're going to have your large paper. Now what I'm going to say, this is one that's going to maybe vary a little bit for the online. Okay, so this is going to be, and it's kind of light. I apologize for that, but I think you can see it enough, right, as to what's going on here. But the size this is intended for is 16 by 20, which those of you that got an art kit from me from my online drawing class, this is the really big paper. There were a few of you that I think I forgot to put it in there. So if you're in my online and you come to BHS, just come to my room and I will get you this large paper. If you're someone that's working at home and you don't have access to a large 16 by 20 piece of paper, what I recommend then is just do 8 by 10 for both, and then you'll just do a 1 inch grid on here. But if you have the ability to, I would like you to do this large. So what happens on your large paper is you do the exact same process. You can kind of see my square here, but it's just a 2 inch grid instead of a 1 inch grid. So when you're measuring, you would go, left to right or whatever, but you make a dot every 2 inches. So I did it on 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. Every 2 inches you make the dot, but otherwise it's the same process. So then what happens is you've got your printout that has both papers, when you're done, should have 8 squares by 10 squares. They're going to have the exact same number of squares. It's just this one is double the size, so it's 2-inch squares. This one is 1-inch squares. Now, the way that this grid works is that you simply, it's kind of a mathematical approach to drawing, but this is a great way to get you to become a better drawer and to be more observational. And what we talk about is when you're looking at a very complex drawing, you get overwhelmed with the whole thing. If you look at this image, there is a ton going on. But what you're going to find is if you take it one square at a time and break it down, it does take a while, but you can simplify it and you can do it. You just take it one square at a time. So on this image, let's just say I'll draw somewhere that I haven't drawn yet on here. But like, let's say I want to do this like set of lines back here. You could almost plot points and figure out where that is. So let's say I want to start like right here. I want to locate where this is. So if I look on my printout, I'm on the far right, and it's 1, 2, 3 over, and then 1, 2, 3 down. What some people like to do, and it's up to you if you want to, you actually could like label these and create like a whole gridding system with it labeled. If you want to do like a, if you want to do like a number letter system, you could do that. For example, you could go like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, like across the top, and then you could go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down this way, and it could be like, all right, this is G3 or something like that. You could have like a row and name. If you want to get that technical, you can. Otherwise, you just visually look and count, right? So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 over and 1, 2, 3 down, and I'm going to locate this spot. So on my main one, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 over, 1, 2, 3 down, and I'm going to focus just on this square. And you can see right here, I've got like this hair coming through, like I've already started to draw some of these things. And I might darken this a little bit because I know on the camera it's coming through a little bit light, but I'll just make this a little bit darker so you can see this hair I drew is literally this right here. And what you're doing like within the grid, I'll darken my grid a little bit so you can see it. But you want to look at right where does the line cross, and as I'm drawing like this hair here, I'm also looking at like how much gap is from here from top to bottom. It's just about being very observational and using your reference points to help you draw something in. So if I'm going to go down to this, I'm looking at where does this cross over. So down here, I could almost plot points and say it crosses here, and then it crosses maybe like right here. And then I could start to kind of, and I can see on the hair here, as this crosses, there's like a little teeny gap right here. So I could go to that spot underneath the hair, and I could start to cross this over. And once again, you want to be light and loose and sketchy. And I do recommend that you draw with like an H pencil or a lighter pencil when you're doing your initial sketching, and then you can kind of darken it later. So that's where that line here is essentially kind of crossing through. And then I can go to where the bottom line is. So if we go down here, it's in the next square down, and it's almost near the bottom. It's like right here. I could plot that point. And then I could see that it kind of goes up and touches the shoulder. You can see the shoulder is there. I've got her shoulder here. I'll make it a little darker so you can see it, but I got the shoulder there. So now I'm going to go ahead and locate that spot, cut, make sure it crosses right at that point approximately that I had. And then right here, I'm seeing it's crossing like right here, and then it's got like a little triangle shape there as I come through, and that's going to come through that way. So that'd be an example of just like locating and properly lining up those lines. And then this goes for anything else. Let's say I go down to this arm here. I've got this arm piece right here that I will darken a little bit. Okay, so that is literally this piece right over here. This right here. This is where I'm at. So now using that as a reference, I could say, okay, where does this next line go? And you literally just start taking it line by line, and you're looking very closely at the printout and trying to line it up and look at where the lines are going and what is happening. Now you might come into a situation here where maybe like one individual square is really complex. So let's say I'm in here and I feel like, yeah, this is really complex, this is too much going on. You can cut that in half again. Like I could take a ruler, right, and I could cut this in half, and then I could take this one and I could like cut this in half. And I could break any square down into like 4 smaller ones if I need to get more detailed and help to line stuff up. So essentially that's what we're doing for this project, and this should take a while for this large 16 by 20. Now in terms of finishing the drawing, your first job is just doing the grid, getting the sketch on. The next step after you get the sketch on is you actually have to go and erase the grid. So it's very important on your large paper you draw the grid as light as possible, because you're going to erase it all eventually and you don't want eraser marks in there. So take your time, get the grid erased once you're completely done with the drawing, and then you have 2 choices to finish it. You can either do like shading with pencil or charcoal and have it be a black and white shaded drawing, or you could do color if you want to do color pencil, marker, or some combination of that. This is a project too that I'd even be open if people wanted to paint, because I really don't offer painting a lot in this class because it's a drawing class. This is a project I would let you do that on. So you get to kind of choose the finishing of it, but really the goal with this assignment is how to do the initial drawing or the initial sketch with using the grid to help you. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there.